Hello everyone and welcome back to Paperback Journeys, where today we're going to play fiction roulette. It doesn't spin enough, it's not satisfying. I'm someone who gets really excited about reading all these different books, but then when it comes time to begin the month and decide what I'm going to be reading this month, I have a little bit of difficulty. And so what I sometimes like to do is implement this little fiction roulette wheel where I put all the books that I'm interested in reading on the wheel, and then I spin it, and then I find out 4 books at least that I'm going to be reading this month. So let's go through what's on the list. Actually, I've got the books right here. The first book that is on the board is 20th Century Ghosts by Joe Hill. This one is, as far as I'm aware, it's kind of like a collection of ghost stories, but with a modern twist. It's all like just a collection of short stories. And each tale is more about kind of like what haunts us in the modern day. So think like technology, relationships, the kind of threats that, not the relationships are a threat, there's a little Freudian slip. No, Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. And as you all know, I quite like Stephen King. But yeah, what I'm hoping is that this is supposed to be very scary. It's kind of got those classic spooky vibes, but with a bit of a modern twist. So that's the first book that I might be reading in the month of March. The next book that I might be reading in the month of March is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is set in a distant future where Earth is dying, and so humanity is forced to go and try to find a new home. And they found this kind of remnant of the past, this gift from previous generations, a new planet which has been terraformed and is able to support human life. But when they arrived there, it's got a bunch of giant super intelligent spiders that have kind of evolved thanks to humans' involvement in the planet. So it's kind of like their last hope might be their greatest nightmare, kind of thing. Yeah, so this one sounds really good, kind of solid sci-fi that I really enjoy. The next contestant in Fiction Roulette is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Would really be interested in reading this one. This story is, just judging by the synopsis, this guy is kidnapped and he's hit over the head. He wakes up in a gurney and he's surrounded by men in hazmat suits. And this man that he's never met before says, "Welcome back, my friend." And this new life that he's woke up to is not one that he recognizes. His wife isn't his wife, and his son maybe never even existed. It's kind of mind-bending sci-fi, and he's constantly questioning throughout the book whether this life is real or the other life is real. He's not sure, but in this new life, he's like this celebrated genius that's achieved this incredible thing. So in the field of science, I think. So yeah, I'm really curious about this one. It's kind of vague, the synopsis, but I like that because it gives me an opportunity to kind of go in cold. Next up is a book that I've heard a lot about. It's The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is a horror about a scout troop that are on this kind of remote island when this stranger who's got this sickness walks up to the troop, and he's kind of coughing and spluttering all over the place, and the scoutmaster kind of says, "Relax, get away from the kids, get away from the kids." And then I think the scoutmaster gets infected, and then he sort of turns and he is transformed into this kind of beastly, not actually like transformed into a creature or anything like that, but I think he's mentally affected by this virus that he's caught, and now he's just hunting down the kids. He's lost his mind. So yeah, this sounds absolutely terrifying. The next book I'd be interested in reading in March is Musashi. Last month I read Shogun, and I really enjoyed it. It kind of gave me the taste of feudal Japan, that kind of historical fiction in that setting and in that time. And I just feel like this is going to give me more of that. This is the story of a legendary swordsman from his humble beginnings up until a legendary status. It's quite a philosophical book, I've been told. It's about Musashi's quest for wisdom and enlightenment and learning learning the true meaning of what it is to be a hero when heroes are required. I think it's going to be super inspiring. And on the back it says, "The Gone with the Wind of Japan." I'm in. The next book that I'm interested in reading in the month of March is a little different in tone to the rest of the books that I'm interested in. It's Stoner by John Williams. And this is much more of a character study, I would say. It's about an English professor named Stoner who's from humble beginnings. This is really just his whole life story, the ups and the downs and the struggles that he comes across. I think it's a lot more kind of reflective. I've been told that this book is just one of the most underrated, underappreciated books that are out there. I think this is going to be similar, maybe in tone, as something like Remains of the Day by Ishiguro, or The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. Books that are kind of difficult to put your finger on as to why you love them, but they're just deeply moving. And I think that this book also relies quite heavily on beautiful prose as well. And so, yeah, I a little bit different to Nick Cutter's The Troop, maybe, and some of these others, but it's something that I'm equally as excited to read. Next is The Dark Forest, which is the second book in the Remembrance of Earth's Past series, the first book being The Three-Body Problem. And if that sounds familiar and maybe you haven't read the books, then it might be that you're aware that there's going to be a TV show coming out on Netflix called The Three-Body Problem. The first book was really good. I think it goes down as one of my favorite sci-fis that I've read so far. And this is, I think, going to pick up directly after the events of the first one. I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything like that. But humanity is kind of gearing up for this massive event that they've become aware of. And I think this book is probably going to be more focused on the strategies, some of the betrayals that humanity is playing on themselves, and, you know, a lot of the mass confusion that might be going on. I think this book is going to be intense. The last book left off on such a high note, you know, and it just got me so excited to read the rest of the series. So yeah, hopefully this one pops up. Next up is The Trial by Franz Kafka. I've never read this one and I'm really excited to read it. I actually picked up this copy when I was in the Franz Kafka Museum in Prague last year. You know, such a dickhead. This one is just like a classic surrealist book about a guy that gets arrested for no reason that he can really understand. And it doesn't really seem to be a reason that anyone else understands, as he gets lost in the red tape of bureaucracy. It's kind of like that idea of tyranny without a tyrant. No one really knows what's going on, and he's just caught up in the middle of it. I think it's going to be so frustrating to read this one, but it's going to be the kind of frustration that I love, you know? It's like an itch that you just want to scratch and you're just sort of savoring it. Does anyone else do that? No? I think it's going to be quite dark. I don't predict that it's going to have a happy ending. I don't know. And of course, it's going to be very Kafka-esque. Next up on the board, we've got these. So basically, I've written all of those on this wheel here. And then we've got these two dark spots. I'm going to keep these blank. The reason being is that you're just not going to be able to see it, right? So if it lands on these dark patches here and here, I think they're kind of like a dark purple, then I'm going to continue with the Red Rising series, all right? So Red Rising has got a couple of opportunities. And by the way, if it lands on the dark patches 4 times, I'm just going to read 4 Red Rising books, right? So let's spin the wheel. And also, as always, we're going to go by the dangly bit, not the arrow. Focus on the dangly bit, all right? Yeah, we'll see how this goes. So the first book that I'm going to be reading in March is, see if we can get a good spin out of this thing. The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. So I'm going to get to continue the journey into the remembrance of Earth's past. Really excited about that. So yeah, that's going to be the first book that I'll be reading. Okay, so the next book that I'll be reading, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm going to spin this 4 times, right? So I might read more than 4 books, but at least I'm going to read these ones. That's quite a chunky one as well, so hopefully I'll get a shorter book from this list. All right, next book that I'm going to be reading in the month of March is Stoner by John Williams. All right. So I'm finally going to get to read this one. This is one that I wouldn't say I've been intimidated by, but it's just one that it's like eating your vegetables, you know? I like the meat. I don't want to focus on the vegetables. And then you eat your vegetables and you remember, actually, vegetables are bloody delicious. Okay, so those are the first two books. Next up that I'm going to be reading in March is... Landed on Stoner again. Next up is 20th Century Ghosts. Okay, so a collection of short stories by Joe Hill about modern horror, modern ghosts, the things that haunt us in the modern day. So yeah, cool. I wrote 21st Century Ghosts on the board. Just leave it. Just give me a break, will you? And then the fourth book that I'm going to be reading in the month of March is... It's going to be another Red Rising book. So the next book in the Red Rising series is Golden Sun. It's Golden Sun. So I'm going to be reading Golden Sun. Let me just get that off the shelf. Golden Sun is going to be the fourth book that I read in the month of March. That's a really good month of reading because it's just spread out nicely. You've got hard sci-fi, then... You've got this kind of like introspective literature. Then you've got horror. Then you've got like this kind of sci-fi dystopian survival series that I'm really eager to get on with, and I'm really eager to see which direction this moves in. So I'm over the moon. I don't think that there would have been a result in which I would have been unhappy because I want to read all of the books. That's why they're on the board. By the way, if you'd like to see a video of the books that are being released in 2024 that I'm most excited to read, then you can click up here. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and happy reading.